Okay, so I'm really nervous about talking about this. I've only told a few people this story my whole life. So when I was 12 years old, I theorized the Planck length. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's the place where quantum physics and like regular space divide each other.
Okay.
The guy who discovered that actually got a Nobel Prize for doing it. So I didn't find out that that was actually real until my mid 20s. So a couple of years after I had theorized the Planck length, I had this awful nightmare, the worst nightmare I've ever had. I had built a doomsday device, and the way that this doomsday device worked was it would focus a large amount of energy on a really small amount of space. I called the Planck length the minimum subdivision. At that point, I had coined my term for it. So it would focus a large amount of energy on this one specific spot in space. And like imagine like a grid paper. Imagine you punch a hole through one of the pieces of the grid paper. Now, the next instance of Planck time, the rest of the sections of the grid around it, they're going to like show an error state because it's all interconnected. And then the next, all the ones that connect to that will show an error state. So the way that that'll look in three-dimensional space will be a bubble of nothing that expands in all directions at the speed of light and destroys the universe. So I found out in 2017, I was reading through a physics aggregator website called phys.org, and I come across this article about Stephen Hawking where he had talked about this theory called vacuum decay. And it's the same thing. I dreamed in 1997 about this universe-ending destruction called vacuum decay, and then I found out almost exactly 20 years later that it was real.
And it came to you as a dream first?
It did, yeah. It was a dream, and it was only like a 30-second long dream. It wasn't very long at all.
And you woke up, how old were you?
I was about 15.
And did you tell anyone around you at the time? Were you interested in science at that point?
I told some of my friends about it, but I didn't have internet back then. This was back when dial-up was common, and I didn't even have dial-up. So I had no idea that this was real until like 20 years later.
Was it something that kind of stuck with you all this time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's been, I was working on a novel that never came to fruition that basically was the same thing.
And so you saw the vacuum decay theory, and it matches exactly what you were seeing?
It's word for word. I had a major panic attack for like 2 days after I read that.
Because you feel like the thing like this nightmare was coming true.
Right. Well, not that it's just coming true, but that it was true, that it was always true.
And in the theory that you read about, does it talk about building something that could create that?
Yes, Stephen Hawking. So this is the theory that everybody talks about with CERN, about them creating a black hole. First off, it's not a black hole. A black hole is a gravitational singularity, which is totally different than vacuum decay. Vacuum decay deals with something called the false vacuum and the true vacuum, which is some complicated quantum stuff about quantum tunneling, but it's definitely not a black hole. So this is what CERN is trying to do. If Stephen Hawking says that if you build a particle collider large enough that you can actually quantum tunnel through, and then the Higgs field will collapse.
And so CERN, one of its main goals in the beginning was to discover the Higgs boson particle. And I'm looking at the
vacuum decay. They did that in
decay,
2012.
Right. And I'm looking at the vacuum decay online right now. And it says, if the Higgs field, which controls the mass of fundamental particles, were to change the default value, it could trigger a cascade that destroys the cosmos, which then reminds me of, I don't know if you followed this at all, back in 2008, maybe it was 2012, the lawsuit where my goodness, I can't talk right now. There were scientists, all types of scientists in Hawaii suing CERN, and they were saying that basically what that just said, but they called it, instead of a cascade that destroys the cosmos, they called it a sphere of strangeness. I
think the reason that they say that is not to like terrify people, because it's a terrifying concept if it's true, and I believe it is.
Yeah, destroying the cosmos has a much more sinister tone to it than a sphere of strangeness, which sounds like a ride at some carnival. But that was in a court, And they were legitimately arguing the fact that they were creating miniature black holes. I mean, you said they aren't, but that was what the court case was about, more or less, that they were creating, like on both sides of that lawsuit, they were saying they're creating miniature black holes. But one side says they will amass at the center of Earth and eat everything. And the other side said they will fall to the center of Earth and like disappear.
I'm not worried about the microscopic black holes. So the gravitational distance that a microscopic black hole is able to exert its effort over, atoms are spaced so far apart at that space that one of those microscopic black holes might absorb 100 atoms in its whole lifetime. So I don't think that there's any risk of black holes absorbing the Earth. But like I said, it's not a black hole. It's the black hole and the true vacuum are two totally different concepts.
Yeah. So do you have like ethical concerns with CERN?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that they're actually satanic, that the rituals that they do there, that wasn't a joke. I genuinely believe that those guys, whether they know it or not, and I think most of the guys high up, I think they actually worship Satan.
I agree. I think we've even pulled up those rituals on this show when we had.
Wasn't like someone killed in that video or something?
There was like a mock sacrifice at one point.
There was a sacrifice.
We had on Dr. Stuckelberger.
Yeah, she was great.
Who lives above CERN.
Right.
And she's incredible. Everyone go back and find that episode.
She was the one telling us about the lampposts.
Yeah. And she says there's like a higher rate of cancer happening there, and she blames it on CERN. She's a very smart lady, very interesting lady. But I've always, ever since I found out about CERN, had an issue with it, ethical concerns. And even then, that's way before I had faith. I was like, that's evil. That thing is just straight up evil. We shouldn't be doing that. It seems like something, it's like, why are we, it's like the whole thing of playing God. This is like the ultimate, because they are literally basically trying to do what they believe is in the Big Bang by smashing particles together. They think they're kind of recreating how they think life started, and it's weird. Yeah, people can go look up if you guys haven't seen the rituals, the dancing, the costumes. It's strange what they do. It's like these weird ritualistic ceremonies that they're doing. And Stuckelberger actually also told us that she believes that they're opening portals there.
I don't know about the portals. I think that there's definitely a parallel between the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden and what CERN's doing. I'm actually convinced that vacuum decay is the literal biblical apocalypse as described in Revelations. There's a bunch of passages that match, particularly the sky rolling back like a scroll. So they've proven that space-time is elastic. And if you take an elastic and you stretch it and then you poke a hole in it, it tends to want to roll up on itself.
So yeah, they would basically, if this were to happen, if this were true, it would erase reality.
Yes, it would destroy every atom in the universe. It would be the end of causality. It would be the literal end of time.
Yeah, that's why it always bothered me, because it's worse than like mutually assured destruction with bombs and stuff. Because this is actually like messing with the fundamental threads of reality. And that's what they're doing with particles that are going nearly the speed of light, smashing into each other. And again, it's not just CERN. There's a lot of these things.
Right.
They're building new one here in somewhere beneath South Dakota, I believe. And I think that one's going to be huge, bigger than CERN.
Well, there's a little bit of good news here. According to Stephen Hawking, the particle collider big enough to do this would need to be like the diameter of Earth. Speaking of that, I don't know if you've ever played Halo, but you know how Halo is based on this giant ring-shaped structure. You know, it's exactly the same diameter of Earth. I'm convinced that that Halo was actually based on the vacuum decay theory.
Interesting. We just had Tim on Timcast IRL. They just had the guy who made all the Halo music last week.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
See, and I didn't know that this was real back then when I played Halo, because I'm not a big first-person shooter fan, but I played all of the Halos up to Halo 3 and Reach and ODST. So like I had an unnatural obsession with Halo. So now that I've found out that that's actually real, and that I'm sure that those things are actually particle colliders, and it's based on that. Like I can't go back to play Halo anymore. It's too terrifying.
Interesting. Yeah, I know what you're saying about what Stephen Hawking said about needing this giant particle collider, but I also wonder about what it does if we're just building a lot of them, you know, and what happens if they're all doing this at once. Not to make
There's
it go
no
back
telling.
to
And what they're discovering is leading to horrifying technologies. I don't even want to imagine what they're going to be able to do in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. Like, I talk a lot about these weird technocracy that they're building here. It's a surveillance state and all that stuff. But for me, above most of it, and below Satan, and I think it's right there with Satan, is particle colliders. CERN, super evil. And man, whatever, go listen to that Stuckelberger interview, everybody, and listen to someone who lives there and see how she interprets it. She talks about some other things as well in that episode. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I was hoping back when that lawsuit was happening that they were going to win, to shut it down. Mm-hmm. Obviously they lost. And here we are.
Yeah, and the way that they lost, they said that America didn't have jurisdiction. They didn't say it wasn't true. They didn't say it wasn't a threat. They said you just don't have the right to say no.
Exactly. Yeah. Wild. Which is like all this kind of falls in with my whole problem with the geoengineering, the cloud seeding stuff, because you can't opt out of this, right? There's certain things that are localized that I might not agree with, but this kind of thing has an effect on reality. And it goes everywhere. These things, the clouds, the geoengineering, it's like not just going to be, we're doing this in California to block the sun. At some point, you just can't opt out. It's happening everywhere. And not a fan. Did you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to, there's several different fictional series that I think are also based on this. For one, The Never-Ending Story. So the guy who wrote The Never-Ending Story wrote that 2 years after the first guy theorized vacuum decay. So the first theoretical paper on vacuum decay was in 1977. The Never-Ending Story novel was written in 1979, and I believe that the nothing from that movie is actually based on vacuum decay.
Ooh,
so is Crisis on Infinite Earths, one of the new DC movies where there's this antimatter wave that destroys every universe, and it always starts at Earth. Like, that's totally based on it too.
Okay, I don't know that one. I'll look that up. But Never-Ending Story is a classic.
It is.
And
I don't think it holds up though.
Oh, it does.
Come on.
I watched it a few years ago.
The flying dog.
Amazing.
Come on.
Yeah, The Nothing is terrifying.
The Nothing is terrifying. The Nothing is terrifying. Also, one of the most traumatic scenes from every 90s kid is the horse stuck in the bog.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And it's always nice to reignite my concerns with CERN.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, man. Have a great night.